Call the meeting to order and ask if there's a disclosure of interest. As there is none, we have an agenda that's been moved and seconded with the following additions. Report number 2024.243 HST holiday from December 14, 24 to February 15, 25. And the second one is the asset management planning proposal for budget 2025 administration capital. Any other discussion on the agenda? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And this morning, we'd like to welcome Rosie. And, okay, it doesn't have your name, Ryan. I knew I saw it somewhere, but there you are. Ryan here this morning from Grant Thornton. And please come forward. We'll pass the meeting to you both. Yes, we have to press the button so the audience out there can hear you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And council members, good morning. It's actually quite nice to attend a meeting in the morning rather than in the evening. We have your draft financial statements that Ryan will take you through, and then our report to council, which I will take you through afterwards. So if we take a look at the draft financial statements, very first page is a statement of administrative responsibility, which would read similar to previous years, where we just indicate that your management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements. You as council approve those statements and have the opportunity to meet with us, your auditors, prior to that approval. Moving on to the independent auditors report, so pages 1 and 2 of the package. I'll take you through this and then I'll hand it over to Ryan. We do this year have a qualified opinion just by virtue of asset retirement obligation recognition in the financial statements. So there was a new handbook section for public sector accounting board standards that requires asset retirement obligations to be recorded. That project is going to be undertaken for this next coming fiscal year. So after for your 2024 fiscal year end, you should see this qualification gone. And you may or may not, depending on the results of, engineering reviews and what have you of your buildings, other infrastructure, may or may not have an adjustment to your financial statements, depending on whether you have, for example, asbestos problems or other environmental problems that would need to be remediated by legislation. With the exception of that qualification, we do indicate in the second paragraph that the financial statements do present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality at December 31st, 2023, and the results of its operations and cash flows for the year then ended. And I will turn it over to Ryan to review the actual financial statements and the notes.
So we're start on page 3, consolidated statement of financial position. Also, it's your balance sheet. Total financial assets, 9.1 million, so down about 790,000 from last year. Some changes there. Taxes receivable are up about 173,000. Accounts receivable in there, it's 920,000. 500,000 is HST. 407,000 is grants. We have 200,000 coming from Ministry of Infrastructure for that TVHL project. That's the last point to hold back there. Then you have another 156,000 from NOHFC. We're still working with management to get this one reconciled. Another small grant, 42,000 POA. Other one below, we have user charges receivable, 115,000. So including there some bank receivables, fire department, and water receivables. Enter liabilities, 3.6 million compared to 5.6. Accounts payable, 1,044,000. So included in there is 291 of trade accounts payable, and then 561,000 for accrued liabilities. So again, in that accrued liabilities, there's the TVHL 200,000 as a flow through there. Last year was a large receivable, but 1.4 million from that project. We'll be seeing that for the statements. Going down deferred revenue, 640,000, so including there is 321,000 for the gas tax that was unspent and 299,000. Next line is for your landfill, so 921,000 compared to 1.6 million. We had a swing there. This is a calculation, so it's really affected by your discount rate. So your discount rate went from 4.7 to 4.
And just to chime in, that surplus is a PSAB surplus. So based on the PSAB accounting, we'll see your actual general surplus when we get to Schedule 1 later on in the financial statements. So you won't see any changes to how your instruments are accounted for in this particular circumstance, but the adoption of this is, we have that already in private sector accounting standards. The adoption of this would impact you or impact the municipality if, for example, you had off-balance sheet financing or derivatives to be accounted for, then they would have to be reflected in your financial statements. Fortunately, you do not have that circumstance. So really, the adoption of these standards has just enhanced your financial statement disclosure. So we will see some new notes that we had to include there. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it wasn't on. It also would disclose, you know, if you had interest rate risks. So for example, depending on your debt and what was happening in the market, you would be disclosing, you know, significant risk there. Fortunately for the municipality, you don't have any significant risks around that, and that's what's been commented in these notes.
Almost done anyway. Okay. The next schedule 2, I have 3 of them. Is your schedule of tangible capital assets. So this shows the breakdown between your assets and then the costs, any additions, disposals, and your amortization. And then your final schedule is your consolidated schedule of segment disclosure. So it breaks down your revenue and expenses by those different segments, which ties into your statement of operations. So those are the financial statements.
Is there any questions? I have just one, not a question, but a comment on note number 10. It indicates the remaining estimated remaining lives of our landfill sites. And it indicates 48 years and 102. I'm assuming the 48 years is for the south landfill site and the 102 is for the north. Just check. Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Your worship, if I may, just on the landfill. So in this coming year, when you adopt asset retirement obligations, there will be some changes to how the landfill is measured, because that has to follow the same process as other asset retirement obligations. So you may see a change. We're not seeing significant changes in those valuations, but we may see a change in that liability as a result of that adoption of that.
Okay. Any other questions of any counselors? No?
We're doing all these numbers in 5
I know.
minutes. I
Yes. Councillor
Just a comment, I guess I mean, my reading of it, we're in pretty good shape. It's not the right way to start off a budget meeting, though.
And Councillor Calvert?
That swing in that 900,000, was that from that kind of a dispute last year over where that should go, some of that money that was, or is that separate? Remember there was like a 1.3 differentiation there.
Councillor Calvert, are you talking about the landfill?
Yeah,
The swing in the
sorry.
landfill. Honestly, when we did the calculations, I was quite shocked at the swing, but it's actually the change, a very small, because your landfills have such a long life still, a very small change in the inflation rate actually impacted that calculation by that much. So it's not any of your other inputs did not change. The estimated costs, et cetera, did not change. It was a very small change, but because of the number of years, it really impacted that calculation. And we double checked it because it was a significant swing, and ran it with the old numbers versus the new numbers to prove out that that is what was causing the difference.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay, we can continue.
Am I on? Yeah. I realize you have budget deliberations, and it may be a good or a bad way to start, Councillor Camp, off your budget deliberations, but I guess good because you're not trying to you're not having to finance an operating deficit.
Well, and this is 2023 year.
Yes.
That we're not talking about 2024 at all yet, so.
I will take you through our report. I won't read you through all of it, but I'll just speak to the salient points. On page 1 of the report, we just indicate that with respect to the status of the audit, once council approves the financial statements, we'll have our discussions around subsequent events, and just a receipt of the signed management representation letter with respect to that, and we will render our final audit opinion. We have just made note of significant items or areas of focus on the financial statements. Capital expenditures, Ryan mentioned, so I'm on page 2, excuse me. Capital expenditures, Ryan mentioned your capital additions during the year. Some of those funded through grants as well as through your reserves and operating levy. In terms of the current economic environment, we do need to keep that, be mindful of that, and we are keeping it in mind throughout the course of all of our audits, because it can impact collection of receivables and items of that nature. We did not make note of anything to be concerned about in these financial statements. Then we did speak to the landfill liability and the fact that the inflation rate actually impacted that particular calculation quite significantly. In terms of significant areas of risk in your financial statements, revenue recognition, there's an inherent risk in revenue recognition for the possibility of fraud or error to occur. So we do pay attention to that during the course of the audit, particularly with respect to conditional grants and conditional funds, to make sure that those monies are spent as they are intended to. So you've earned those monies accordingly. On page 4, we just speak to fraud and illegal acts. So we do have a focus on that to ensure that any instance of fraud, we follow up and have appropriate discussions, as well as legal acts if we're aware of illegal acts that have taken place during the course of the year with the municipality, we would bring those to your attention. Accounting practices, so we just talk about asset retirement obligations, which you will be adopting in the current year, as well as accounting estimates. So really the most significant accounting estimate in your financial statements, as we've talked about already, is your landfill liability. On pages 6 and 7, we've identified the adjustments that were made during the course of the audit, as well as one item that's could potentially be a misstatement in your financial statements this year, and we'll be working with management and will be adjusted in the coming year, is just with respect to a grant, that an NOHFC grant that was set up as receivable last year, that appears to have been appropriately set up as a receivable, but may have been received somewhere along the way that we are just investigating. Not material to your financial statements and will be adjusted for if necessary. We talk about our technical updates, and I won't take you through our technical updates or our appendix on overview and approach, but we do have a final appendix, Appendix D, at the very back of the document, the very last page of the document. Our internal control letter. So as in the past, segregation of duties, difficult in an organization your size to have a perfect segregation of duties scenario. So we just make note of the fact that those responsible for financial reporting also have access to your software, the ability to post entries, etc. But you do have compensating controls in place where checks are signed by an authorized member of council with access to supporting documentation. And then just with respect to an advisory comment, asset management software. So we just noted that during the course of the audit, the citywide software was not being updated throughout the year. That way, as a result, information in the system regarding assets and accumulated amortization were not current, and manual calculations were required to update the financial statements and related disclosures. And we just suggest, we strongly recommend that you keep that information updated for current additions and amortization to ensure, complete and accurate reporting of your capital assets. That's our report.
Any questions? None? Okay.
But on the advisory comment, the responsibility that we have, gotta get out, why do they update their software or is?
No, that would be the responsibility of your financial management team, is to make sure that's getting
That
updated.
it gets updated and it hasn't been done, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no other questions. We'd like to thank you for coming this morning. We appreciate it. I guess I'm going to ask the obvious question. You might have been asked this before, but will 2024 come a little quicker? Because we do have some grants that depend on our financial statements being, here a little earlier in the year, so.
We will work with your management to ensure that happens on
Okay.
both ends. Yes. And
Yes.
in particular, getting the asset retirement obligation information so
Right.
that those calculations can be done early. And then working to, establish a time frame that we can ensure that we're here visiting you much earlier and when we normally have visited. So
Yes, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate that. Like I said, there are some grants and dollars that we have to produce year end for, and if we don't have it, we can't. We're too late in getting them or whatever, so. Thank you very much again. Thank you very much for coming out on this rainy morning.
Doesn't feel like December, does it?
some days it does and some days it doesn't.
Doesn't. And I do notice that the Tim's car just went past, so if you would like to have something with your coffee, it just entered our hallway. Thank you very much. Yes, you too, you as well, and all your staff.
Be safe. Yeah.
Yes, you too. Okay, so now we have the report number 2024-242 to approve the consolidated financial statements and to receive approval to transfer the 2023 budget surplus to the reserve. We will pass it over to our CAO and our treasurer to tell us what our surplus is for 2023. And their recommendation for reserve.
As noted in the statements, the budget surplus of 629,665. Transfer to the working reserve recommendation, unless there is, I'm not aware of any specific projects that need a reserve transfer that we have set aside.
That correct? Okay, so we have that resolution. It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Then we have the report number 2024-243, which was on the desk and emailed to us earlier, which is the report on the HST holiday from December 14th to February the 15th, and what this will cost our municipality. And I will pass that over as well to either the treasurer or CAO, which wishes to discuss this with us. I see the CAO prepared it, so.
Yeah, so we did learn just last week, I think it was Thursday, that the government is going ahead with the HST holiday. So we are going to be trying our best to comply with this. The only thing that we have affected is our concession. So what we'll be doing is pulling the cash register in this week. On the 14th, we kept our regular prices. We weren't able to adjust our cash register on Friday. So we'll do that. So then when the concessions open up in January, we'll have our prices adjusted for no HST. We have to determine what type of adjustment we'll be looking at. When you look at the third page of this report, when you dig out the 13% HST, you end up with funny numbers for prices. And since we deal mainly with cash, we don't want to have numbers that we end up with nickels and dimes and so forth. But we may end up doing that. We'll have to determine what makes sense. And then what happens when this holiday is over on the, I think it's the 15th of February, we'll be in the midst of a hockey tournament. So we'll have low prices on Sunday, February 16th. We can't get our cash register reprogrammed on after Saturday evening in time for Sunday and a hockey tournament. And then we'll reprogram it the following week after the 17th, which is the Family Day holiday. So we have our regular prices back for the weekend coming up after the 14th, 15th weekend. So, yeah, and when you look at this, our HST, we collected on the first page, 2023, we collected about $5,600. 40% of our HST, 45% is in this period. So there's going to be a few dollars saved by the consumers, not much really, but it's a major issue for us, something to deal with. Reprogramming the cash register. Fortunately, we have a staff member who can handle that. We don't have to rely on somebody on the outside, but we still have to go drag the cash register out, bring it here, change it over, take it back. So it's quite a bit of, inconvenience for us to be compliant with the HST holiday, but nonetheless, we need to do it. It's been well publicized, and we'll take care of it that way.
I just have one thought. When I pay something cash, which nowadays doesn't happen too often, they usually round it up or down. Is that not how this goes?
Well, what we're concerned about is nickels and dimes.
That's
You
what I
see,
mean.
you see all the prices we got now, they're all in
Right.
quarters.
Yes.
So we deal with silver, the big silver. But, nobody wants to go to the bank and get, 6 kilograms of nickels and dimes for the next 2 months and be counting out a couple of nickels and dimes for people.
But I mean, what I'm
That's what we
saying
need
is,
to do. That's what we'll
yeah,
do.
but I'm just noticing like for fries, it was $4.50 and then the HST, now it's going to be $3.98. Would you not make it $4?
Well, then we're
That's what
not,
they would do if I go to a,
Yeah, fries would be $4.
like they're gonna round them up or down, because
Well-
if I go to Walmart, that's how they do it. They round it up or down,
are
so.
we meeting the spirit of this thing? You're supposed to be providing all the HST back.
But they say you're supposed to round it up or down.
Yeah, they don't, without pennies anymore.
Yes.
right? So
So that's why I'm saying if it's $3.98, you make it $4. That
Well,
makes
with
it to me a lot easier.
popcorn, for instance, now is $3. And so it's a nice round transaction. And with the other amount, it'll be. Give them back 45 cents and change when they give you the $3.
I think we're gonna have to encourage people to use their cards. Put up a big sign, because
Sure.
I've had people ask me, they only take only cash. I said, no, they have the machine. Yeah, but on the wall it says cash only. I said, no, disregard that. Go there and ask them, and they do have a machine.
I believe that sign that was taken down. this
Okay.
year.
It could have been. I was just asked about it last weekend where it stands, so I said, no, go back there.
I'll go back and look and see it.
And no, not you, but I told them to go back because they didn't have cash. They were from out of town. I said, take your card. You can buy whatever you want with your card. So, yes,
For what it's worth, though, it might be best for us to round down to the nearest quarter. We might be out $300, but then we're not dealing with the nickels and dimes and having people standing around in line longer. So that's something that we have to weigh.
I would round it off. People are not gonna notice it's sent either way. If they do, then maybe they should buy somewhere else.
Yeah, and the rules are even actually more ridiculous, because if we really wanted to get into it, we'd have to go through certain items, and depending on, for energy drinks, for example. Depending on how much added caffeine is in it. If there's above a certain amount of milligrams per milliliter, it's not tax exempt, so.
It's the same with alcohol. I found that out last night. Somebody gave me a course on alcohol when I was sitting down for my Christmas dinner, saying if it's under 5% alcohol, then there's
Yeah.
no tax anyway, so.
It's the same with those vitamin waters and stuff too, they have a certain amount added to it, so it's.
Oh, what a headache. Okay. All righty. Now we have our second draft of our 2025 budget, page 6 to 11 in our book. I will certainly pass that over to our questions to the treasurer and or CAO. Did you want to go through every department, or did you want to give us just an overall, how does this new budget hit us?
We can start with an overall picture
Yeah.
and then we can go to
I
the
think
various
that's better.
departments.
So,
If you recall previously, in the earlier draft of the budget, we were looking at a substantial tax increase. We were directed by administration to come back with a tax increase that was more palatable, I guess would be a better word, to somewhere in the 2 to 4% range. And we were able to at your direction, we removed certain items, such as the Hearthstone Bridge replacement, and some other things. And after growth, we are now estimating a 4.3% tax increase. And there are perhaps some, when we go through this draft, perhaps some other savings that we can make. So the report, I think, in your book, which is a little bit different than mine, pages 2 to 6, just kind of detail what the big changes that we made were. So, but we can go through each line item and or each department and discuss the changes that we made.
yeah, that's on page, we have page 1 to page 5, or almost 6 for the changes in our book.
Yeah. So
So what does council feel? Councillor Viss?
Yeah, and I'm glad he did that, the overview of the whole thing, and I started going, I said, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not going to go line by line here, it's going to take me forever. So I start to look at the whole overall picture, where the changes are. I think the staff did an excellent job in removing some of the stuff that we did. The only thing when I went through there, I said, well, how come did we end up with that 6% increase? So then I took a look at that. Then if you look at Mint, okay, what they changed there is they increased the capital by 40,000. And to keep it in line, they transferred 45,000 from reserve. That's spending money. I don't care how you look at it. They took it out of there. So that's a $95,000 swing from what we thought. Fire department operating went up 16,365. And the capital from reserves went 12,500. So then the public works, the operating went up 19,989. So you get a whole total here of changes in operating and so on of $143,763. So when I look at that, I said that's about a 1.52% swing. So if they did not change most of it in operating, we could go home today, because we're exactly where we're at. I don't like that 6-point-some%. Because what's happening when you do it that way, the credit or the use of the 2-point-some-11% of growth is all going to allow for spending. It didn't give council any credit by saying, hey, you guys did a well job, you did well. And so I would like to have seen that reduced somewhat. That's my overall view of the thing.
But whatever percentage that we come to, it will have, the growth will be subtracted from it. So can not use it. Shot.
sure. Okay.
Councillor Peacock?
Thank you. I do have a number of questions with regard to what we received. So we'll be going through each department will be on a
We will-
individual basis?
We wouldn't be planning to if we can come to an overall decision, but if you wish to go to certain specific.
I think we can walk through each
Can you walk
department. It'll
through
be, some of them will be quick because there's no
Okay,
changes at
that's
all.
right. Okay,
And some of them like address Counselor Vis's comment about the administration changes.
okay,
So give him a chance to
certainly.
discuss those.
So we can start with our first one. Is that the what's the first one?
Yeah, we'll look at administration as the first department, starting on page 21 of
There it
52.
is. Okay,
So,
all
okay.
righty.
So to Counselor Vis's earlier comment, the changes in administration from the previous budget largely relate to the addition of some capital items that were included in this version of the budget. So there is on page 22, there is the addition of the office roof, the agriplex roof, and the municipal office front and back door replacement, which I believe were previously recorded in the public works budget in the earlier version, I believe for most, but they've been moved to administration.
Mm-hmm.
And so those would be new. And then we have building assessment and asset retirement obligation assessment. Now, those relate to comments that were made by the auditors. There was a change in the requirements, public sector accounting. And what we have to do is we have to begin to set up, similar to with the landfill, not reserves isn't the, conceptually, they're like reserves for the retirement of certain assets that the municipality owns. So buildings where we know there is a potential for a future liability. So an easy example would be fuel tanks, where there's potential soil contamination associated with them, or buildings where there's potentially asbestos in the building. So we have a number of older buildings where we're unsure of the status of those buildings, and we're unsure of the liability that we have for, so for example, if you have a building with asbestos and you have to tear it down, there's a significant cost involved because you have to set up containment to make sure that it doesn't spread. So that's a new accounting requirement. We were able to get away with it this year with a note. I don't know, she didn't really discuss it, but there's a small note, a qualification in the statements. But next year they want us to have an actual asset retirement obligation plan. So I'm going to move over. So it's an asset retirement obligation plan that they can refer to in order to set up the liability.
So it'd be almost like a reserve, but
It's almost like a reserve, similar to what they do with the landfill.
yes, so
and
we
s-
know that it's going to cost us once that building does have to be replaced
Yeah.
or removed.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to look at then.
Yeah, and we had discussions with the auditors that the reality is it's cheaper to keep them standing. So, I can see never tearing them down, kind of, right? Cheaper to
Oh.
keep it standing, certainly in our lifetimes, so.
But then if you keep them standing, you also have to have money to put in the new
Yeah.
furnace and the
Yes.
new windows and the
Yes,
new roof.
all that stuff too, so.
So that's where the additional 45,000 comes. And as far in the past, our practice has been for these type of items to draw the funds from reserve. And so I stay consistent with this. Now, if you choose, we can fund them out of general taxes, or we can take them out of reserves, whatever decision you make.
Okay, Council Stock? Just,
Right.
yes,
So you have both building asset retirement obligation and building assessment. Is building assessments just a 1-year deal? Is that every year we're gonna stipulate 25,000 for that?
So through the chair, speaking to building assessments, the last time we did a complete inventory of the municipality was between 2018 and 2020. So in order to update those costs, as what Rosie talked about, about citywide being up, it's our responsibility to do that. So we have to retain engineers to go and do complete building assessments of all our buildings.
Is it like yearly?
No.
This is
no,
like I said,
This is a catch-up gearing up
Yeah.
for our submittal of July 1st, 2025 to the government.
and then every, what, 5 years or so?
That's what we're
That's
thinking offhand. So bridges are automatically every 2 years based
Yeah.
on the standard, but we're thinking that we are gonna do a good enough job annually in-house. When we do repairs, we'll update those costs across the board. Say we do windows at one building, we will take those costs per each window, apply it to another building that has just update our costs. But we're looking at a 5-year refresher to do an actual thorough deep dive.
Any other question?
And as far as the asset return obligation portion of it, it's an unknown. We have, we're discussions with the other area municipalities. And we don't know what the long term is gonna be. So I would suspect that, the 25,000 is an estimate. It may be higher, may be lower. Depends on how much they'll take for internal. But I suspect it will not be annual, as to Councillor Calvert's comment, that, once we have it set up, then we can do a lower level of investigation, if you will, and to address changes. So that is just this the one time setting this new requirement.
Okay. Councillor Peacock?
Thank you. With regard to the asset management planning proposal budget, that the other memo that was on our desk, is that, it previously was 6,000, is that going to be put to 10,000 as line item 1283, or whereabouts is this $10,000 allocated in the budget? Is it addition to the capital, or where are we putting your requirement with regard to this memo we received?
Well, that would be an addition. However, I'm not sure what the 6,000 in 1283 is currently.
That's off the place.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, this information, I'll talk about that. We have to come up with our phase 4 plan for July 1, 2025. There in this additional information, it talks about what things have already been done, the requirements of earlier plans. The last step, though, the phase 4, there's quite a bit of new type of work in there. You need to flush out your levels of service and then have the life cycle management that goes along with that and the financial strategy. So in this report, there's a discussion about the details of what we need to do to achieve that, levels of service, how long we intend to run assets, what condition we're going to keep them at. We need to do that for all asset categories. We can do a lot of this work internally, but what we've think is that if we use the consultant who has some knowledge of this, would help us to get information on estimates of how long some type of asset lasts, or what's the best strategy to deal with something like windows and doors, and incorporate that into our plan. The other part we have to do is the financing strategy, but that's something that's not so difficult. We've done that before ourselves. And the other thing is the public engagement. We're going to need to, once we get this together, we have to do public engagement, part of the scheme, and then end up bringing it back to council to decide where we go. I was thinking maybe Director of Operations, maybe you could expand a bit on some of this asset management phase 4 plan detail.
So through the chair, we were back in 2020, it was rolled out by the provincial government with an expansion of deadline. This was supposed to be all done by July 1st, 2024. We were supposed to have all this done. So we submitted our initial plan, which was just our core assets, a year early. We did that in July 1st, 2023. And so now step 4 is the final public engagement levels, as Wayne speaks about levels of service, financial plan all rolled into one. And again, the commentary from the provincial government is if you don't do it, you're not getting your gas tax, but that is yet to be proved out. So we have to do a bunch of legwork. The 10,000 that's in the report, I don't have the report in front of me, but the report that speaks to the 10,000 was for retainer purposes to fast track that advice from Citywide, part and parcel with getting the 25,000 building assessment out, because it is every asset, not just our roads. We do have a very good handle on our roads. The strategy's proven out in the last 10 years. And we've been following that to a certain extent. The budget you see before you is directly driven by annual road assessments that we do. And the costs are being upgraded now that we have the 2023 financials. We'll go into the road network and see if any anomalies pop up that we've missed, but I don't believe so based on driving them. So yeah, there's a lot of work in the next 6 months with asset management to meet that July 1st, 2025 target. And it is line in the sand that we have to meet.
Any questions? So that 10,000 is not included in this yet. It'd be an addition. Okay. Councillor Peacock?
Thank you. One thing further, with regard to the year-to-date for the municipal loan under expenditures 1294, it was in the third quarter and now it disappeared for November. So I'm just wondering what happened.
When I guess when I added lines for the office roof repair and that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
the cell reference was changed and it didn't update. But we're still on track to make the municipal office. So we'll be back in on.
And just wondering, is there any thought with regard to possibly getting a Generac generator for this building? Or because it was mentioned at another meeting that the power went out and there's only like 2-phase, is it 2-phase on one side of the building and 3-phase on the other? So half the building goes out and the other half doesn't. And I'm just wondering if the generator that we have out there is sufficient.
The generator we have is sufficient. There's no interest, there is no capital expenditure of a Generac plan for 2025 at this office.
Okay. Now, again, I'm going to come back to this $10,000 for the asset management planning. I ask again, is there any comment or concerns, thoughts about adding the 10,000 to administrative budget to do it? It's a requirement that the government wants done. And I feel that we should go forward with the proposal. So that has not been added into our final total yet, correct?
No.
Okay. All righty. Yes.
One other thing further with regard to the capital, for the back door replacement, is there something that, like, could you put a vestibule or something on that back door? It's pretty chilly in that back hallway and just wondering what the plans were, or would they be solid doors or just replacing glass doors?
Through the chair, it's pretty early on to design it right now. If it got cut from budget, it'd be a waste of administration time to come up with a plan. So plus the budget will come forward with a proposal.
Certainly. Okay. We move to building and plumbing inspection. Is it-
Sorry, as far as agencies.
Oh, agencies, I'm sorry. I thought.
Yeah, no problem. As far as agencies go, we have received some updates from agencies as to what they're estimating for next year. But a couple are still to come. And as they come in, MPAC, we're supposed to get this week, but their budget will be, I think we're pretty close with our estimate. But as far as when they come in, we will endeavor to include them in the next update. So, but we don't, but we don't control them, unfortunately. I can tell them that that's a ridiculous number, but they don't. They just ignore my
Just tell
email.
you to pay it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, building and plumbing inspection. Has that had any changes done since the last budget? No?
There were no significant changes in the building and plumbing
Okay.
section.
Bylaw enforcement,
Again, there were no significant changes in bylaw enforcement.
cemetery.
cemetery-
Saddle
Cemetery, as per our discussions, we added the $4,000 for the columbarium addition or new columbarium. That will be at the bottom under capital expenditures. And that would be funded from transfer from working reserve.
So that's coming from reserve.
From reserve to cover future purchase of a new columbarium. But we do at the current rate, we do have a few years before we have to make that purchase.
Council budget. Oh, I'm sorry, Council Peacock.
Thank you. The transfer of $1,000 from the endowment reserve, is that to cover the shade structure project?
Yes,
Okay, so that'll happen year end.
yes. If we-
Okay.
Anything in regards to the 2025 budget? No? Okay. Council, page 27. Were there any significant changes? Councillor Peacock?
Thank you once again. With regard to council initiatives, I really feel that that needs to be increased. We continue to provide for our residents, which isn't a problem, but I feel that it needs to be better tracked. And like, for instance, like at the last budget or the last meeting we had, we approved $570 for an ad in the military book. And every time we have a rental that we give out at no charge, things like that, as mentioned by the CAO before as well, that, you know, those things need to be tracked and perhaps we need to put more money into the council initiatives just as a tracking system. Just my thoughts, but thank you.
So those items are cash neutral and would not affect the rate, like the tax rate or anything like that. So if we do decide to go that way, it would not change our tax rate at all. It would just be accounting entries between departments. And we can do that if we are directed by council to do that. But yeah, it's whatever.
It doesn't make any difference to the budget at the end of the day.
No, because if you're
You take it out of one and
specifically,
put it in the
yeah,
other.
specifically if you're talking about donations for the hall, it would be an entry in the hall revenue side of it and a corresponding entry on this side of it. So they would wash out between the two. I mean, you know, it would be you know, maybe more transparent isn't maybe the best word, but it would, you know, it would show more in terms of what's being donated to different community organizations. So there are positives to it. The large jump between Q3 and November, that's an actual a physical asset that was purchased at direction of council. So that's not the same as what Councillor Peacock had indicated. So if there are other large items that you think you're going to be purchasing next year, I don't know what the item is because it was done enclosed or the purpose. So anyways, but the 5,000 is consistent with prior years. So
Alrighty, so we'll just maybe leave it at 5,000 and we won't have that large purchase this year.
okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts of council? Economic development,
Again, economic development had no significant changes
from the
Do it.
last budget.
from our previous version.
Okay, fire and emergency,
So with the fire and emergency, a number of items were removed. As you can see some of them there, they have the little blue highlight in the cell reference or the pumper flow test. Those were removed because they were duplicated in individual line items. As well, we removed the cistern and dry well. They were rather large items. They've been removed, and some of the other capital items have been removed as well. So overall, there's, okay, sorry, Councilor Peacock has a question.
Councillor Peacock?
Earlier in the year, we had approved the Voyant Alert for the fire department. I don't see a line item in here as far as a payment that went to that. It was, I think it was $3,500. And I see it for the 2025 budget, but nothing for 2024. The other item that had been approved was the fire station feasibility study for the emergency management group. It was $16,000 and change, and I don't see that as a line item for 2024 as well.
For the feasibility study, it is in progress. We have not been billed for it yet. And the Voyant Alert is, as you can see, is a new line item that we added. Sean requested that as a separate line item. It was previously recorded under the licensing for software and stuff. So it's in another line item, not separated.
Councillor Viss?
Yes, it may have been answered and I may have forgot, but the fire grant 7,500, which was budgeted, there's nothing, doesn't show anything received. What happened there? And then we take it right out of there. And so there's nothing budgeted for this coming year, the fire grant. Can you explain to me? I know the fire chief isn't here, but
So for 2024, we have been approved, so we will receive that money. I'm not exactly sure the timing on that, but it may have been received already or should be received shortly. And we are not eligible for 2025 for that same amount. I'm not sure the changes that happened. It may be a case where you can only get it a certain number of times. Or it may be a case of something that changed and we're not eligible for it.
Yeah, it was a one-time grant. It was $15,000. We got the first 7,500 and we didn't qualify to get the last 7,500. The fire chief had a lot of difficulties dealing with their requirements, and we ended up not getting the grant.
The second part?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other items on the budget for the fire department? Okay, the general recreation. Whoops, I'm sorry,
Sorry, no,
Councillor
I-
Calvert.
That other grant money that Sean got, we did receive 49,200 from a similar grant related to wildland fires. That's in account 0429 at the top of page 29. We did receive that, and we did also obviously to receive that grant, we did spend the money on those items that you can see, which would be at on page 32. That's highlighted in pink, 49, 481.
Yes. Yes.
Follow up what Councillor Peacock said. The fire feasibility study, I think we'll have to put that back in the budget because we're not paying for it this year, right?
Yeah, I guess we will, if it was approved
Drag
last
money out of
year,
reserve.
so we would, if we don't get it completed by the end of the year, we'll have to move it over to reserve.
So then that money will be moved to reserve
And
and
then added to
next
the
year we'll
budget.
get the bill, we'll take it out of reserve, so it won't change
Will
the,
not change the
levy.
budget at all, no.
okay. Any other items for the fire department? Yes, Councillor Peacock?
Just a question, perhaps the director of operations could answer this one. If the cisterns and the dry well were removed from the fire department budget, we do have one at the museum. Can it be accessed in the winter? Should it be needed?
Through the chair, the museum's plowed usually the day after a storm. It's open right now. It's a normal municipal key on the gate. They're welcome to use it should they have to use it. It's designed specifically for the car museum based on its location. If the fire department chooses to use it, then they have to choose to fill it back up. Otherwise, we don't meet the standard for the museum.
Okay. General recreation on page 33. Doesn't seem to be any changes. Were there any?
General recreation, there was a small update in the revenue from the air ambulance on line 0717 to $5,000. That's the
That's what we had asked now,
yes,
or they had offered and
yes.
we accepted without regret.
I don't see why we wouldn't take more money, so.
When it's been 3,500 for the last 10 years. Councillor Peacock?
I spoke with John about this on Friday, just looking for clarification again with regard to the 2002 Chevy Silverado repair and maintenance. I believe that is a duplicate, the $1,500, line item 7149. And then 3 above it, it appears to be the same vehicle with the same amount of $1,500 for repair and maintenance.
That is, yes, that will be removed from a future version of the budget.
And then will we be getting a listing of all the vehicles that are in service and different numbers? Because I think everything has changed with the recent purchases, especially fire department and public works, etc.
Yeah, I will send out a vehicle listing with a breakdown by fuel, repairs, maintenance, licensing and stuff that council can review if they wish to have details on any specific vehicle.
And then one further question with regard to the capital expenditures for the public work or for general recreation. The Murillo Rink building, we're moving that, like, we've already spent 8,200. We're 10,000 was the budget. We're continuing with the 10,000 in that budget, as well as the same thing with regard to the Murillo track fence. We spent 14,000. We budgeted 25. We're moving 25 over again, or is it just kind of a catch-all to match up with the funding that is on the revenue side?
Through the chair, the answer to the question is both. There is the budget that's presented in 2025 catches the full value of the grant that's available. The two components that the Councillor Peacock has talked about, the purchases have been made for the parts and pieces. We're just sitting with a labor component left over. So we are under budget on the grant expenditure. So the due dollar values that pulled across will be to finish off everything by May 1st.
Thank you. Okay, now we have the landfill budget.
So with regards to landfill, there was a duplicate for fuel, oil and that type of stuff. It was a separate line item, but it was also included in the operating vehicle expenses in the previous version. So those 2 items have been removed. And so that would be line 4251 has been removed and distributed to the individual machines. That's the only significant change in the budget.
Okay. Councillor Peacock?
I believe were we discussing adding $2,000 to the punch card to make it 5,000 from the last council meeting that we had? Because that was the report that the punch cards were going to be, or the cost was going to be 5,000. Perhaps that was including insurance, or I'm sorry, postage. I'm just not sure on that. But the last report of council said it was 5,000 for that.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a report presented to council after this budget was prepared, and it did have $5,000 estimated cost for distributing punch cards for 2025. We can certainly make that adjustment.
And then with regard to the North Compactor repairs, they were approved this year for $31,586. Have those repairs been done? And if so, do we know where they're recorded?
So they are recorded in 4257. I'm not sure if the work is complete or not, but we have been billed for a substantial portion of the work. I believe it is functioning. There is a note that 4256, 4257, the equipment was moved between locations. And so 4257 is, though it says South Compactor, is actually located in the North Landfill, just because the decision was made, I'm not sure when, to track it by the equipment location. Or sorry, the piece of equipment. So that is out. So I will be just changing the description to equipment R&M and use the actual description of the piece of equipment. I believe it's like FD 011 or something like that. So I will change that in future budgets.
Peacock?
The one other comment that I did have was with regard to cell phone, item number 4263. We budgeted 3,000, we spent 112. So can we save some there?
Yeah,
1,000 down into the punch card.
we can move the money to the punch cards. Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Okay, library is the next one.
Again, the library had no significant changes.
Okay.
So- And the same goes for livestock. And even Murillo Hall had
Murillo Hall,
no.
any questions on those? Councillor Peacock?
Just a note, following the library meeting there, the check is in the mail, or hey, and mail starts tomorrow, by the way, but no, the check is coming with regard to the rental that the library had for 2024. For NOHFC funding, electrical repairs and the lift pump, were they carryover from NOHFC funding?
Which, is this?
I'm sorry,
Murillo?
for the Murillo Hall.
Murillo Hall, okay.
Through the chair, the quick answer is yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other? We've got all the capital work that's going to take place at Murillo Hall. Or sorry, I'm looking at the museum now. The Murillo Hall is okay. The museum has, I see, had some changes.
Yeah, so the museum had a extensive addition in terms of capital items related to primarily access to the second floor that was required. And so the individual items are broken down. The museum board plans to apply for a grant to cover those items. A Trillium grant will cover 75% of those items. The remaining funds would be drawn from the reserve related to the sale of the DuCont Museum. And so there's no change in terms of the levy related to those items, but they haven't been approved by anybody or anything, so it's up to you guys to give me or the museum board direction.
So, yeah, I would think we had told them that the reserve in regards to the sale was theirs to use in the future with the approval of council. But the funding application, if that 63,000 does not come through, they will not be doing that work? Or are you saying that we will now prove it and say we'll do it even if you don't get the grant? Just
That's
asking.
up to you. No,
I'm just for clarification.
I'll be honest, I am unsure in terms of what is actually required versus what is they would like to have. Their report to me was not 100% clear on that, so I'll defer to the CAO or.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the museum board meeting, it was December 2nd, it was outlined that we wouldn't be doing this unless we get the grant.
Okay. So that means none of this work with the second floor and the egress on the second floor, none of this will happen unless they get the grant. And then we will,
Right, they could ask council about, okay, we didn't get the grant, how about we use the 21,000 or something to do
something
something
else.
or other.
Okay,
But no, the idea was we don't do this unless we get the money.
okay. Councillor Peacock?
Perhaps the museum should be one of the, in particular, that building that they're looking at putting access to the second floor there, or improving the access. Perhaps that's one that we should be looking at for building assessment before we even venture this far. If we've got money in building assessment for capital assets or for asset management, that way we'll know that that building is able to be accessed without other improvement.
So through the chair, there was a building assessment done for the museum media, that's the most current building assessment we have, I believe it was 2023. All the museum buildings were done. It was a big number, so to speak. There's been various dialogue in the last couple of years in regards to what we're opening, what we're running, what we can find, what we can afford. In my opinion, those numbers still hold true. The building assessments that presented administration are for our community centers, fire halls, Norwest Arena, that kind of stuff.
And one other item, the salaries have increased, and I know that they had considered opening more days and offering programs, but are we premature to put that value on the salaries if we don't know what kind of programs are going to be offered at the present time?
I think the idea behind the increase in the salaries there was to provide the curator and assistant curator more time to plan events. They do well with these special events, so they feel that they need more time to plan these types of events. And just wanted to comment that unfortunately, the 2024 budget was understated. You see the 66,355 and the 12,043. They're understated by about $17,000 because that those competitiveness adjustments we did in 2023 didn't get caught up in the 2024 budget. So that number is down 17 grand. So the actual number should be about 96. So what you're looking at for a difference here is about 25,000. About 101,668 is about 25,000 more than the previous year. And I've got the breakdown of the numbers. So the curator's numbers would go up 216, and the assistant museum curator is 330. And what they're, again, trying to do with that extra time is do more events to bring up the participation numbers. You get a couple of dollars extra in revenue, but the idea is to try to get more people in the door. At the December 2nd meeting, they were talking about trying to do one of those Halloween scare events. They seem to be in a lot of different places, the scary boat and things of that nature. But so that's what the museum board, the rationale behind asking for extra hours for those two persons is to try to get more programming, the special events. That's when the people come. And when they're open during the days, without the special events, they have less participation.
So basically, if I understood what you said, you're looking at about a $500 increase in wages between those two people?
The total amount is 25,000.
25,000 increase in wages.
Yeah.
For two people, like that they're,
Yeah, increasing the hours. But then again, there's salary increases for the other persons, but
yeah.
the hours for them have stayed about the same.
Any thoughts or questions? Okay. And Norwest Recreation Center,
So for our Norwest Recreation Center, there was an increase in ice rental to reflect the revised rates that we have approved for 2025 going forward. And then we also added an increase in salaries to reflect anticipated changes with the new CBA. I believe it currently expires at in July,
okay,
or so August would be for the fall season. There would be new rates, hourly rates for the staff.
okay.
So that's the changes in there.
Any other questions? Councillor Peacock?
Line items in the expenditures for spectator railing. Was that done? It was applied through NOHFC. And I'm just wondering, did we do them or did we need them?
Through the chair, that project was completed in 2023.
23, okay. Also on the original application for NOHFC was a compressor head rebuild. Did we still need that or?
Through the chair was done at the start of the season.
Oh.
Startup.
Okay.
2023 ending or 2024 beginning. I'm not quite certain of the timing on that, but it
Okay.
was completed.
I don't see a line item for it.
If it was completed in 2023, it won't show up in here.
No, because this
Okay.
is 2024.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Anything else? No? Planning and development?
So plan and development, again, no significant changes to report in this department.
Councillor Peacock?
Just a couple of items we spoke about, John, with regard to the benefits and the staff development. Those line items are significantly different from Q3 to November. You had mentioned it was a line item change there.
Yeah, I believe what ended up happening is that the salary and benefits are together and the cell reference changed. And so the 167 should be down in 8130. So that's in the year-to-date actuals. So
Okay, Public Works Operating and Capital. Operating is on page 44 and 45, and then I believe we hop over to Capital on the other pages. So the operating first?
so with the terms of operating, there were really no significant changes that we discussed going forward. There are some changes to the capital. But if you guys want to discuss the operating first.
Is there any changes or questions, Councillor Viss?
Well, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, you say there's no changes. Well, there's an increase in operating $19,989 over the last report that I had. And you say there's no significant change.
That relates to, sorry, I should have made a comment earlier on. We updated the insurance costs. That's a note that's actually on page 7, I believe. And so the insurance costs flow through in every department.
Right.
And so there was approximately a $13,000 or sorry, maybe a slightly higher amount for Public Works insurance because
Yeah, no,
it is a very
to me-
large insurance,
To me, it
user.
looks like about 20,000.
20,000, yeah. So that would be the
Just
change.
for insurance.
Yeah. So that would be the change. Sorry, I should have made that statement at the beginning. So every department that has a small change or has a change related to insurance, some of them it's a couple $100. Unfortunately for Public Works, it's a larger
Well,
amount.
obviously, yeah, I would think so.
So,
That's not Public Works' fault. That's just
Yeah.
the way the system works.
yes.
Councillor Peacock?
Thank you. One of the items that was listed on the sale of used equipment was the grader. So when the grader was sold or we sent it as a offset to the purchase of the new, is that why we have a credit in item number 3728? Well, we did have a credit, now we don't have one anymore.
Yeah, so per our discussion at the previous round, the request was to move that item to sale of used equipment. And so you can see that on line 0603, there is 82,520, which is the sale of our trade-in net HST applied on the trade-in. So that's why you see the adjustment between those two.
We did have other items that were going to surplus to be sold, and did we not get anywhere with them?
Through the chair, a plow truck was supposed to be here. It's not, therefore it's not for sale.
That's right. You
Mhm.
still have to use it.
And all of the equipment did a substantial increase. I'm just wondering why.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
All of the equipment, like for instance, from item number 3720. Well, that's not so much an example because there was nothing in 2024, but if you go down 3720 went from 7,500 to 29,288. Just
So-
wondering why all of the equipment went up substantially. Is it because of fuel or?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe if you looked, you'll see that there is license chart, all that kind of stuff, vehicles, repairs and maintenance. But the fuel is now assigned to each vehicle rather than a single line item. So
Yes, Councillor
So-
Calvert?
So my interpretation, then these items here would actually be gone then after this, those, since they're redistributed down below.
if you looked at budget 2024, you'll see under equipment, you'll see diesel fuel and oil 150 in 3243, 3244, 3245. So those amounts have zero in 2025 as they've been assigned
Right,
to the
so-
individual vehicles.
So we wouldn't
Okay.
need them then.
You don't need,
Going
yeah,
forward.
going forward. So
Right.
yes, so the overall, the change in the vehicles is
Yeah.
there is a change, but it's not as large given
It's
that.
internal, yes. Chris?
Through the chair, it also looks like there is a shift in the data here too, because there's no money carried forward in the 2025 budget. Looks like the totals in column 5, 2025 budget are shifted down a couple based on some of the costs I know happened on some of the vehicles and what we're predicting. So it looks like there's been a shift here because Public Works 02 F-150 is not going to have a $14,629 budget for next year.
Mhm.
But yet the license plate stickers of 22,618 should move up to licenses. Unless we're gonna split them out. It looks like there's been a shift in the cost column or the 2025 budget column. For some of these instances that are talked about down below. Minus the gas and vehicles and maintenance and stuff like that, it's gonna get split out. But it looks like there's been some line entries here that may have shifted some numbers.
Okay, we can
And
check
through
into
the chair,
that.
if I could refer back to one of the opening comments in the description. They talk about cost for vehicles and equipment repairs is estimated based on known upcoming repairs for each unit. Unexpected breakdowns are difficult to budget for, but the cumulative budget totals for vehicles, equipment repair and maintenance generally sufficient to cover such costs. I speak to the landfill compactors that have both had emergency failures this year. We came to council. It's up to the individual manager, in this case me, to try to balance those costs throughout the year. With looking at the budgeted cost in Public Works specifically for our year to date, I think we're understated from the proposed budget. So end of Q2, if the costs are true, we're budgeting 1.28261 and our approved budget 1.651 with a quarter to go. We are in good shape that way based on the fall we've had. And I will speak to one of the things in operating. You can see on line 3133, Last year, we had $100,000 in budgeted for salt. It was an anomaly that we didn't use very much, but we are still carrying that $100,000 budget going forward. So when it comes to balancing operating, again, the insurance going up 20 grand.
Mhm.
The rest of the budget is at zero in my ballpark.
Okay. Councillor Peacock?
Thanks for that explanation, Chris, with regard to the cell reference, because I think the other two that need to be looked at are 3741 and 3742. And that would be for the link belt excavator and the Mini X. They both have $11,470 in them as for repairs, and yet our previous was 2,500, and yet there was only like $91 and $108 spent on them this year. So again, it could be just a link reference for line items.
Okay. And now Public Works Capital.
So I make, yeah, Public Works Capital, the big changes relate to the Hearthstone Bridge. That decision to do work, that $6 million has been removed, as well as other miscellaneous bridge work that was removed. The only bridge that work that remained was 83,200, I believe, related to Candy Mountain Bridge project. And so this is where we see the largest change.
And the loan payment is going to go down 200,000 approximately.
Yeah, the loan pay, yeah, the loan, we are reflecting the
New loan?
Public Works was able to get the work done at Kakabaka for less than budgeted.
Right.
And that the delay with the financial statements actually helped us significantly because interest rates are much lower than they were
Right.
in March. So
Yes.
we're over the life, we'll save a couple $100,000. So
That's perfect. Councillor Peacock?
Once again, it's going to sound like old hat, but is there a chance the OCIF funding could be moved to the Waterworks Department? As well, we had nothing recorded for the prior year's NORDS funding, and yet this year we're anticipating some. How does that work?
which line item?
I'm sorry, it doesn't have a line item in the old GL line item, but in the capital revenue?
So we, every year, so if you see line item 0333 above it, we receive approximately $136,000 from NORDS, less they actually addressed it down based on how much interest we earn from the bank. So anyways, we received probably 130,000. We've been carrying that money forward. The Public Works Director plan is to use it for upgrades to the intersection of Twin City Crossroads and Highway 130. We plan to start that project this year. So we are going to pull the money from previous year's NORDS, that 545 plus this year's NORDS, to use that towards that, the cost of that project.
And did we get the suspended heater yet for the garage? I don't see it as an expense yet, but we did budget for it.
Through the chair, I believe it was done in January of 2024, right after the budget was approved, because we needed it.
Maybe it was captured in,
It could be captured in a different
2023?
account, or it could be captured in 2023 if it came in late or early enough. It may have been accrued in 2023 based on an order date.
and do we have to increase the funding for the pressure washer? The steamer, sorry.
I believe that's what we voted on at our last meeting.
I don't believe it will affect this year's budget, though.
Oh, no,
That's
that's
it.
right. This is for 2025 that.
Okay,
Well,
it's just that we won't get it till next year, but it'll be,
But we've ordered
be
it
paid,
and it will be we will accrue it and record it in 2024 expenses.
Okay,
So,
we're still waiting on the plow truck?
yes.
Any other questions? And then we have the Roslyn Hall, which about the same.
Which Roslyn Hall is, no changes to Roslyn Hall.
And then the SNEMS base, you've got insurance. Oh,
Yes.
Counselor Peacock?
Thank you. Sorry about that, but with regard to the Roslyn Hall, earlier in the year, the West Arthur Community Center donated $4,000. And I don't see it recorded here as being received. With that, we were to purchase large coolers and a large cooler rather, and I don't see that in this budget item line.
So for the first part, I'll answer the first part and I'll defer to the Public Works for the second part. So the first part is there is no specific line item for donations related to Roslyn Hall. They go in, they can be earmarked for those funds, but they are recorded in the general donations account for the municipality.
Through the chair, we were procuring prices on, through the summer on what options would be best suited to Murillo. We are still functioning with the things we have, but we have found that we can probably get 2 for the grant to kind of redo the kitchen. Those processes are in play. We just haven't purchased it yet. And because it wasn't specific to a given year, it was just one of those things that we looked at and moved on to other things. So
Yeah. So it's something that might happen in 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, the SNEMS base, it looks like the only change there was the insurance.
Yeah, there's no change for SNEMS.
Yes.
So then we have to put this cooler thing in here and then drag the money out of reserve to pay for it, eh? Or
yeah, through the chair, there's no rush to time frame on it. We were looking at it in regards to 2024. We got some prices in June. The closest proponent was in Winnipeg and shipping was a problem. And we were just trying to maximize the floor space to get 2 of them. But if council so chooses, you can put a project in as an in-out for 4,000 in, 4,000 out and do it.
Mhm.
But it came in mid-summer or mid-spring or whatever it was, and we looked at it. We would have brought a report to say the money went from here to here,
Mhm.
and it would have been done in 2024. We moved on to other things.
That's right. So it's still there.
So do we want to add it then as an in and out for?
Yes. We will do that. Okay, and then again, the South Garage looks,
South Garage, again, with the exception, the action was insurance, there is no changes in South Garage.
that was empty. And streetlights,
Again, streetlights, no changes.
and the Roslyn Village Water System showed just
There-
the insurance.
In line 4134, the Aqua contract
Oh,
has
right.
been increased to $80,000. That's based on the latest figure that we've received from Aqua as an estimate.
Okay,
I don't know, Wayne, if there's anything new on the Aqua front.
yeah, what happened is Aqua with the arsenic treatment plant, they've they've consulted with their legal department and the current contract is void because now we have an arsenic treatment in there. So they want to run on time and materials. And we've had conversations with them. I think it was last year or maybe it was earlier this year. Right about them saying that their costs are greater than their fees, et cetera. So with the time and material thing, we've got the Roslyn Village arsenic plus their cost issues. Time materials estimate would be 80 grand.
Rates on two. User.
Can't increase it any more than it already is.
We still have the same rates there. The Roslyn Village drinking water system is not sustainable. We're all aware of that with just 31 or 32 users on it.
How long have those rates been at the rate they're at?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
If my memory serves me correctly, I think it happened the second year I was here, which would be 2016. There was a huge outcry from repair dollars in 2015, and I think council set a directive in 2016 to flatline them at 150.
Mhm.
So I think I recall having this discussion last year because we had the ongoing arsenic issue, that we didn't want to change rates, but I think we need to be looking at changing the rates. I mean, it's only reasonable that it goes up in the past 10 years.
So through the chair, just for clarity, we have been doing water meter readings all of 2024. We are bringing a pretty robust report end of January in regards to that discussion point.
Mr. Peacock?
Could we move a portion of the OCIF funding from Public Works? Just to offset some of these costs?
Speak through the chair, speaking for 2025, I think the report will provide some clarity in regards to where we should be going with Roslyn Village and what we'd like to do. At that point in time, I think a funding request would be in order to be some portion of tax supported. There'll be three options presented in regards to how we fund the Roslyn water system.
Councillor Campoff?
So I was always under the impression that it's supposed to be self-funding. So what binds us to doing that? Or is there something that forces us to do that?
Through the chair, we did not have the infrastructure in order to bill per individual. Now we do. We have the infrastructure, hence the report's coming. We have a full calendar year of how much each individual thing uses, and we will come up with three scenarios presenting a rate that would affect the individual users wholeheartly. We will come up with another rate that we present in the report that'll show a 50% contribution on operating, and another scenario that shows a 100% commitment on the operating. We're splitting it up based on our operating costs and then a consumer cost component for a proposed bill going forward.
Where does capital come into that equation?
Capital, just for further clarity, the people of Whitewater get a capital component on each one of their water bills. It's a reserve fund that's put away on the Whitewater scenario. We do not have that data. We do not have that formulas factored into our existing budget. And as the CAO has said, it's not sustainable, and we're going to bring that report late January.
Okay, so it will be part of your report. Thank you. Yes.
We had a report earlier this year about how we can fund the arsenic treatment plant. There were options for that. The users pay a portion, or else the taxpayers pay it all, or what have you. But that report also talked about the operating costs. And if you look at the 2024 figures, this water plant is not sustainable. That report talked about the fact that our operating costs in 2024 are $100,000 and we collect 60. So what that means, you see that number 38,347, that's just recording a due from the water plant of $40,000. It's this water system has on our balance sheet an accumulated deficit, and we're doing the same thing in 2025 to balance the books, a $78,000 due to from.
Bill,
That's what it is. It's the
outstanding bill.
place can't pay for its operating costs. And the capital is just another layer of trouble. Yeah.
Councillor Peacock?
So to the Director of Operations, we don't anticipate any further expenditures with regard to capital. All the work has been done then for the requirements.
Through the chair, I'd like to say yes. we tied in the south well last week and we're currently flushing and doing some 72-hour testing right now on the south well to put it through the arsenic filtration system. That's ongoing. That's where I should be today. Once the south well proves out that we've got the arsenic removed, we're going to introduce that into the water system and tackle the north well. Some of those costs in the north well are 5 feet deeper. First of all, we're dealing with frost. I would love to say everything would go perfect. I do not anticipate it going perfect somewhere between Christmas and New Year's.
And the questions? Okay, so. Where would you like your, yeah,
I apologize for this. I should have asked, when we were in the Public Works Capital. Is there a chance or is there a reason that Simcoe Drive is not, chip sealed? Or could it be included? Because that's a long way for our grader to go just for that little piece of, unsurfaced road top.
Through the chair, there was a report brought to council 3 years ago prior to us rolling out our strategies for asset management that showed no new expansion. All the projects that were covered in expansion in 2021, 22 were canceled to meet budgetary numbers. And also, it's not the only section of gravel road we maintain. We maintain a short piece north of 102, so the grader's going right by anyways.
And can there be something done to improve the water system in this building, like a water softener or something? Just because the facilities are orange.
well, and you will find that in every place around here.
Okay.
It's not just this building. I happen to have spent a bit of time across the road years ago, same color. It's not changing. That's the type of water. That's the water that's,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So that's about $9,000 in the last 2 years in this building.
It still is usable for what it's usable for. Yes, Councillor.
Well,
Leslie.
Mayor Lucy, I guess we've gone through every item here or every section. When we started off, we were at a 6.45% increase, and we've increased it by I don't know how much more. We certainly haven't reduced any. And when we originally started, the discussion from council was if we get anywhere, I said 2 to 4, and what else I heard is 3 to 5. Well, where are we going to go? What are we going to do here? Or if we're going to accept it the way we accept it, you're going to be higher than 6.45 because we added a whole bunch of stuff to it. So where we're at, what are we going to do here? I'm not going to accept that kind of an increase. So, but it's majority council rules.
Yes.
I have a suggestion for that. It's, again, use of reserves. If, we got our 2023 statements that says we have a $630,000 surplus. 430,000 of that went to the museum, but the rest of it was generated by our general operations. So, we do have that 2023 surplus. In the old days of budgeting, that used to go in, it says in that report, used to go in as your revenue. But we don't do that anymore. We zero it out and it goes to working fund. So the surplus of 2023 is in our working fund. So what we can look at is if I'm looking at page 19 there, the capital budget summary. The Public Works net capital budget's about 2.3 million. Last year was 1.6. And it's gone up quite a bit because last year we had that loan to finance those big projects. If we decided that we would take another 100,000 out of the working fund reserve there, we would drop our tax rate from the before tax, before growth, I should say, or after growth. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. From 435 to 335. That's just an option.
Mm-hmm.
Pull more funds, like 100,000 out of working fund reserve for the Public Works capital.
On that note, with regard to the roads equipment reserve, we have a resolution that was passed that for the new plow truck, if needed, we needed $40,970 pulled from the equipment reserves to cover the cost of that truck. As well, we had passed a resolution that $15,000 come from working funds reserve for the assessment for the Wanzat collection. So I'm thinking that we need to ensure that our reserves are calculated, to include those resolutions before we know where we're at. Because as it says, this is an estimate for reserves, and we may not be working with as much as we thought we had.
Just,
Now, Lucia, the reason I'm a little concerned right from the start, negotiation is starting this year and next year. And if I'm on the other side of that table and I look at, you need almost 7% increase to operate, how do you think I'm gonna make a living out there on the road? So whoever's gonna go negotiate with the union is going to be in a tough position to have decent, and we gotta always keep that in the back of our mind, folks, because people are not dumb. And that's why I have some concern when you have that kind of an increase.
but as indicated by the CAO, if we pull the 100,000 out, we will be down to 3 point.
Much better.
Okay, that's the question that was being asked.
3.5 is much
It's in
better.
the range.
That's after growth. Pardon? It is
Yeah.
definitely good to have growth. It saved us last year as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
With regard to Councillor Peacock's comments about the reserves, we can take a more close look before we do the next draft to make sure we're very happy with what we have on our reserve transaction schedule here. But according to this, at the end of 2025, we've got 1.2 million in the working fund reserve, and we just added
Another 600.
200 to it. Some of that went to the museum. So fortunately, we do have some reserve to work with.
Yes.
The exact figures are always a challenge. They move about, but with regard to that appraisal, we ended up paying 7,300 rather than 15. So, and then maybe you could look somewhere else, and maybe we spent more than we thought we would. But
I believe that the managers of every department follow their budget fairly closely. And if they felt that they were drastically overspent for 2024, they would have been here already to tell us. So I feel fairly certain that 2024 will have a surplus as well. Either a surplus or something not done and not taken out of reserve, as has happened in the past.
We are currently on track for a surplus.
Yes.
still got 10 days and pull a lot of dough.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Big storm.
Yes.
Well, don't park the plows. They do that in other places. And then people
To
stay
that
home.
point, we have hired equipment today dealing with the last storm. So that's an external cost. So to Wayne's
Mhm.
point, we could spend a lot of money in 10 days.
Yes,
Blow a pipe at the water main and be trucking water.
that's right. Plus, it costs money to be spreading all that sand and salt too, to keep the roads safe, because it's gonna turn to ice in a couple days. Well, it already is on the side roads.
Maybe tonight it'll start worse when the frost goes down. I feel bad for you.
Yeah, through the chair, we were on it most of the weekend, and again, we have hired equipment today trying to get rid of the wheel ruts from last weekend.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's, I know that coming in this morning with the rain, it has softened up.
That's right.
And now if you are careful on
Pull
the
you all
sidewalks,
over.
it pulls you a little, see?
Yeah,
So I thought to myself, boy, that work crew is gonna have their hands full, especially when the weather drops tonight. Wow.
as I say, I prefer it to be cold in the winter and the
Yes,
sun shining
So
and
true.
soft snow and everything
Everything, yeah.
be the same and none of this up and down because it's not good, but we can't have always what we want. So, where are we up to? We've gone through all of them.
So we'll update for January, we'll update the budget with an additional $100,000 Public Works.
For reserve, from
Reserve,
reserves,
okay.
from working reserves. And also the update with the addition of the 600,000 plus in 2023 into the reserves.
Yeah, I will update that table.
As well as a correction on the cells for the
Sure,
equipment, et
yeah.
cetera. Ethan, thank you.
Any other item in regards to the budget that you would like this, Councillor Viss?
Yeah, so nothing, well, it does have to do with budget. The report I read in the newspaper from your interview with them and said they expect to have bottled water till March.
No,
And I
he-
thought, well, that's what it stated, okay, that could
what
be
it
probably wrong.
stated.
Because I thought, and I wanted to ask Chris that, we were doing how close were to where we had done enough arsenic testing that we could start using it? Remember you brought that report two ago?
So through the chair, we ended up backing up a little bit in November when the ports were on strike. Our pumps ended up in the ports.
Yeah.
On a sea can.
That's right.
So we've now got so that delayed doing the well installation, which delayed doing the arsenic testing. We've been in discussions with MOECP quite extensively with Aqua. And we have a timeline in place that works to meet the standard. The tricky part is the south well hasn't been used for about 1.5 years. So there's some flushing and some additional testing requirements prior to giving that to the consumer. In my opinion, we're about 6-7 weeks away from being done with bottled water.
Okay,
We
that's
have moved
terrific.
the water to Roslyn Village. It's back inside now. So the delivery is starting today at 11 o'clock. The pickup is at the Roslyn Community Center as it was last winter.
Like 6 or 7 weeks.
Thereabouts. So I have enough inventory to last about 6 or 7 weeks and I prefer not to buy anymore.
You're looking about the end of January or beginning of February. As I indicated to the person I spoke with, is that we definitely hoped it could be by March, but it also depended on the Ministry of Environment approving all the final testing. So,
Through the chair, there's an extensive amount of raw testing, calibration of the plant and arsenic testing on the back end prior to it being allowed to go to consumption. Even though we're on a do not consume order, and that has been troublesome. To me, it seems simple, but in reality, it's not. So we are working diligently with our vendors and with our service provider to get off this boil. And I will say there is a consensus from the health unit and from MOECP to step forward to get this thing off as quick
that's
as we can.
perfect.
So
That's nice.
it's been 2 years come March 14th.
Councillor Peacock?
And with regard to that, I'm sure that the residents who are involved in this water system would appreciate an update to let them know as well. Not everybody gets the paper and perhaps a little note in with their December water bill or something would do some explaining, I'm sure.
Notes got delivered last Friday by our engineering student in regards to our opening hours for water distribution. And last week was fairly busy in regards to Roslyn there. I think at one point in time, there were 16 pickups parked on Maple Street. So if people think we're not working on it, they're sadly mistaken.
That's right. Yes, Councillor
One
Viss?
further question on that waterworks, like the testing and stuff, is that done here locally in town where they do testing? The reason I'm saying, I got the most frustrating test. I thought my water well was done. If any one of you, I don't know if anyone joined that, when the Ministry of Mines or something came through and they, and of course we said, sure, why not? Well, I got my water sample back, excuse me. Holy mackerel, so we can't drink the bloody stuff. And I said, yipes. I went to town and got a bottle sample and I took it in. 3 days later, I have it all 000. Wow, what a frustrating 3 days, because you say, what's in my well? And it's down there 128 feet. How am I going to check if there's an animal in there or whatever? So my point is, I guess, how do we know how accurate these water tests are? They definitely were not. So I don't know what the solution to that is, Chris, but you know, you can see what you say, all of a sudden you get a result. And is it really true?
So through the chair, we all know how we got here in regards to arsenic.
Yes.
It was a range of numbers that got changed.
Mhm.
We were above or below the provincial standard.
Mhm.
Provincial standard changes in regards to testing. I will say that we have by doing our municipal buildings through the same provider that we're using for the rosin water that we use, we have some comfort feeling in regards to the testing that we're getting.
Okay.
To your point, yeah, you could test your water and you could send it somewhere and you get what you get. And there is some concern, I feel, that wells are changing. We ran out of water, Roslyn Community Center, Friday night. Had to truck a load in. When you look down the well and you see the height and you see what the bottom looks like, when you shine a flashlight down there, we're down about 70 feet at Roslyn. And when you see the bottom of what that shale structure is, yeah, it's deceiving. And maybe the sample was taken right at the bottom of the well, or if your water's getting close to the bottom of where your well is. Shale and then gravel does scary things, and it introduces minerals that maybe we haven't seen when your pickup is 6 feet off the ground. Now the pickups are getting closer and closer to the bottom of the well. So it all has to do with the sampling, and yeah, you will get anomalies. We've been trending up on one of the wells on the north well with a little bit of arsenic as we've been monitoring it. Now it's back down. What's changed in the aquifer? You know, that's a huge aquifer underneath there. I saw it firsthand Friday night when we fired up the pump Saturday morning, what came out of the pipes.
We were trying to get half Mac, that's.
Yep. Through the chair, the design of the plant is we're gonna be consuming again at half Mac. The design of the plant should bring us to 1/10 Mac. Well,
Till it changes.
through the chair, we have a little bit of space should they choose to change it again, but the overall design on the trowel systems that were done by Walkerton should take us to 1/10 Mac. Our target is, through discussions with the MOCP and health unit, half Mac, we're back on the consumption. Because we meet the spec.
Councillor Peacock?
Just one question with regard to the water system, the public water dispenser. How do you anticipate that is going to work? Would it be for anybody and everybody, like a fob that we can use in town?
Through the chair, it's not gonna be a fob, it's gonna be a push and hold type system. That's what we've got thought here, and the layout of the plant, it'll be presented in that end of January report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? None? Okay, I have a resolution that's been moved and seconded to adjourn today's operating and capital budget meeting at 10:06 a.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Does that mean anybody can go draw water?